Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp, beerless. It's time for springtime. It's going to be a warm, warm day today with highs into maybe even seeing some 60-degree temperatures going into this weekend where we're going to see some rainstorms. We got a lot to talk about today. I got Pre-Critic. I got a brand new Dubbin Stuff. I got a bunch of city council stuff, which they're talking a little bit about coronavirus during the Public Safety and Health Committee meeting. So I'll have some tips so how you can prevent the getting and spreading coronavirus. So let's talk a little bit more about that weather that's happening here in around town. If you guys check out the weather report, 30 degrees currently. It's only going to get warmer. According to the National Weather Service.org or .gov, your high is going to be 66 degrees. Your low is going to be 37. So it's going to be a pretty good, and there's rain likely happening with a 70% chance of rain. And then it's going to start dipping back down into the highs in the 40s. So you will get a little taste of spring with the annoying part that is March in Montana, which has a tendency to be like, it's spring. Ha! Just kidding. You're in Montana, baby. All right, so let's talk about some other news that's happening. Of course, Missoula has a new sheriff in town, or should I say chief of police. The city of Missoula just welcomed Jason White, who is known for working 28 years in law enforcement. It comes from Northern California and the Sierra foothills. Many police officers in Missoula also were in favor in a survey where they didn't have to put their names down. An anonymous survey, they say that they preferred Jason White over the many other candidates that filed to work here in the beautiful city of Missoula. Of course, as a highway patrolman, White worked in 14 counties spanning throughout the state, with each county acting as its own station. For White, however, Missoula is bigger than his previous area in Northern California, and of course, it's proof that Missoula has the kind of magic that tends to bring many folks from around the United States. Governor Steve Bullock, big state news is this is just kind of like a hearsay maybe, but it seems our old Governor Steve Bullock might be running for the highly contested Senate seat. Starting off on Monday, and he'll be running with three other Democrats, totaling 4 Democrats will be running if he decides to run, and he'll make that announcement on Monday whether he's going to run or not. Of course, reports from local news agency KPAC said that they heard from multiple reports Bullock will announce his run on Monday, and of course, if you are in other news, if you're a customer of Colstrip, you might be seeing $2 million in savings if the plant closes by 2025. According to the Spokane-based Avistacor, they are going to try to purchase 300 megawatts of Montana wind energy in the next 7 years and transmit the green power to Washington on power lines, space freed up by Colstrip's shutdown. The first 100 megawatt will arrive by 2022, and they will see how it kind of goes from there, and then they'll grow from there as well. Of course, officials at Avista plan to cut emissions by 80% in 2033 based on the 2018 levels. So it's quite a big thing that's happening with the Washington State-based company, which of course Washington State also passed a law not too long ago, is that they're going to cut all coal-based power altogether, and they're not going to receive any kind of emission-causing power for. So I think that it has to take some time. If they put it into law, they say they have until, I think it was 2025 is when they needed to actually cut out any kind of natural gas, coal, oil, any kind of additional power for that as well. But of course, Northwestern Energy, on the other hand, owns Unit 4 of the Colstrip power plant and plans to buy another unit along with continuing the run of the coal plant until as late as 2042. Most of this depends on how Montana's Public Service Commission votes to allow Northwestern Energy to buy the additional units at Colstrip as well moving into the future. So that's kind of where Montana is sitting. National news, of course, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders are the two people who are going at it in the highly contested presidential nominee. California saw Bernie taking the lead, and North Carolina early last week saw a new life and longevity into Biden. Super Tuesday also saw Joe Biden taking a lot of states, with the highly contested California seat going to Sanders. Elizabeth Warren ended her bid earlier this week and refused to back any candidate. For all the little girls out there, NPR reports acknowledging her place as the last major female candidate in the race. She hasn't won or come in second in any state, and even finished third in her home state of Massachusetts. As a debater, she proved very formative against Biden and Sanders, but wasn't able to win over the voters. Of course, in California, they have been very big proving grounds for who would be the Democratic nominee in the last couple of years. Obama won in 2012. Of course, he was the incumbent. 2008 was the exception with Hillary winning California, but of course, you knew what happened in 2008 when Obama was elected. Okay, international news, of course, 300 million kids are officially staying home from school amid the COVID, otherwise known as the coronavirus. With groups of fear that the virus, with grown fears of the virus, 13 countries have closed schools nationwide. China, by far, is the most students affected, with more than 233 million people. And of course, on another note, carbon emissions have basically stopped in China. And I got a chance to download this satellite picture of carbon emissions from NASA, so you can kind of see. On the left, this is carbon emissions from January 1st to the 20th, and of course, on the right is the more recent, with everything kind of shutting down to a halt with the carbon emissions. And of course, you can tell this is the carbon emissions, and this is the lack of carbon emissions that are happening in China. Of course, coronavirus, according to NASA imaging, of course, let's see, China just closed all services and basically went shut down. So currently in China, 80,000 people have been confirmed with coronavirus, and it has been up by 160 people since March 5th, and the death toll is at 3,000 people. And of course, in the worldwide, there's 97,980 confirmed cases worldwide. They have I got this from information of Coronavirus Tracker, so you can find out how many people have the virus and how many people have died from it as well. Of course, I will also have a few more of a report about how Missoula is battening down the hatches for the coronavirus that has spread through the state of Washington, and there's been 6 confirmed deaths in Washington as of earlier this week. So that's kind of what's happening in and around. And I'll talk a little bit more about this a little bit later, but I'm going to throw it to a program that's going to be airing on MCAT this weekend. So if you are going out and about this weekend, today would be the perfect day, but this weekend on Saturday and Sunday is the perfect time to stay inside and watch some great local programming here from Missoula, for Missoula. Here are some of the new programs.
A few things it's likely to mean are unhealthy indoor air during periods of wildfire smoke, because we've learned very clearly in recent years that when it's smoky outside, the air quality in our homes and buildings is also unhealthy and unsafe to breathe unless you have the right kind of air filtration system or a portable air cleaner, which most of our homes and buildings don't have. It's likely to mean increased cooling costs during hotter summers. It's likely to mean physical and mental health impacts associated with the smoke and the heat. I don't know how many of you were around in the summer of 2017 when it was very smoky, but those both physical and mental health impacts were very real and were experienced, I think, by everybody.
There's nothing hard about living in Helena. They've got the same things. We have to have water and food and grocery stores. What do you mean? You have to do Helena. And then there was just one person, just one person was willing to do it out of 30. The rest were going to stay in Missoula and wait to see what would happen, and wait tables and whatever else they needed to do until a position came open that allowed them to get the job they're wanting to have. So we have a very difficult time getting people to exit Missoula and head back out to other parts of the state. So
instead of 28, we're going to allow 25. 25,000 is now what we're going to pay the same doctor, the same drug, on the same person. But the change has been that the hospital acquired that physician. So instead of a office build, it was hospital built. You know what the difference is between the 7 and the 25 annually? $315,000 to this employer on this individual. It was simply an extraction from our client, because next year, when their rates come out, that's going to be in the numerator. That, for this client, resulted in an additional 33% rate increase. I called Blue Cross. I said, what in the hell? They said, well, that's our contracted rate. That's our deal. I said, that's ridiculous.
Hey guys, welcome back. So those are some of the programs that are airing this weekend on MCAT. And why not stay home? Because there's a bunch of movies that are coming out this weekend that you might want to pass. Kicking things off is it's a family kids movie. You know, it's a movie by Pixar, so you are pretty much guaranteed to bring your kids and have a good time. And your kids always ask you, is like, why is Daddy crying? Well, this movie is in it for you guys. Enchanted, which is what the movie is called, follows a less than chanted teen and his burnout brother on a road trip. Sound familiar? Anyways, they with the power of magic, and of course, you know, they're mystical creatures in a human-esque modern world. That's kind of like the twist. They're just like, what if medieval Dungeons and Dragons creatures basically were living our world? You know how like we pretend to play Dungeons and Dragons. Now they're pretending to be us. So the concept of normal, but what is normal? But let's not get into this. So of course the crux of the film is that they're bringing back their dad through the power of magic, but their dad's only brought back a certain amount of parts, and so they have to go on this quest to bring him back. And there's gonna be crying. It's like, oh no, if anybody has, you know, daddy issues and stuff like that, this is like the perfect movie for you guys. Good cathartic kind of movie. But of course the movie ends with dad coming back just long enough to make an emotional impact, and to all the fathers and sons out there, cry, cry, cry. Moving on, there's another movie. It's a basketball movie which stars Ben Affleck, and he's down on his luck. He is miserable. He's a drunk, and the only way he can not become a drunk is to teach teenagers to play basketball. Yes, it's an underdog story. This movie follows a man who has given up on life, but must teach kids not to give up on life. Sound familiar? This looks like a true story of a losing basketball team that comes together and wins the big game and gains real-life respect for oneself. Of course, you can expect to laugh, cry, and go far away from this movie. You know, hey, it's one of those movies that make you feel good, and it's a sports movie, so there's always a market for that. All right, so those are the kind of movies that are coming out this weekend. I have a movie. It's called Spider Baby. So hurry down the faucet for me. It's time for Dubbin Stuff. Ooh, I have an upset tummy. Give me some Pepto.
Well, I say we cut him open.
Quiet, I'm trying to do my puzzle. Yahtzee. I think the table has it, dear. Ah! Can you do something about that spider? Okay, oh, you're just gonna... Oh, ugh. I understand that locusts have a lot of protein, but that's not an insect.
It is the crab of the land.
Okay. Let's see if this one fits this time. Oh.
My tummy still hurts over here. Do you think you can do anything to fix my problem? Oh, wow. More people.
Haven't you already done enough, honey?
Oh, wow. I can't wait to use our Airbnb as a cover to kill these people.
Well, aren't all Airbnbs employed to kill people when they least suspect it?
What about Airbnbs with high ratings? You can't torture anyone and expect them to give you a good rating on your Airbnb.
Listen, you torture them until you get the perfect score.
Does that really work? Ugh. And all I've been doing is eating spiders.
I like to think of it as a way as a inventive pest control.
Huh? Sure it's taking them a long time to pull in.
So am I gonna have to put up the welcome wagon or you?
You promised me you'd take me
No,
to
I didn't.
JCPenney's and Macy's.
Shut up. Looks like we're here.
Don't change the subject.
Come on, not this again.
Are we still talking about Macy's?
Well, it's not about Macy's, but we probably shouldn't say Macy's because it's copyrighted.
Huh, not like this movie, right?
You know it.
Well, this is a very nice B&B. I can't wait to go in there and go shopping and look at the knickknacks and all sorts of things.
Oh, hey ladies, I know it's a little late, but do you guys have any spare rooms for us? We have money! From the English pound to the Indian rupee.
we're not going to stiff you on the bill.
Probably.
And I probably shouldn't have said that.
No.
We are definitely going to pay.
Okay, I can't wait to have you stay with us.
Let's take a good look at you guys. Oh, you're in pajamas. Perhaps this is a bad time?
Oh, no, it's a good time. Would you like 2 beds?
I can sense the negative energy in the air.
2 beds do
you
sound
guys
nice.
are a riot.
Shh.
Oh, I'm sorry. Am I being too loud? Well, I don't care if I'm being too loud. Come on, come on, words and stuff. Woo, we're gonna have all. Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some city council stuff. One of the things that are happening within the city of Missoula is that city staff report to talk about the 2-cent gas tax that the city and county that the county is proposing. Of course, the city during this meeting is to write a recommendation of support to the county of this tax. Of course, this tax would not be on diesel fuels, and it is allowed by the state, but it has to be voted on by the people. But of course, this is during this meeting, Jeremy Keene, Public Works Director, talk about street needs and how this money would also go into helping the city of Missoula.
And this is just a snapshot of the crack survey that they did. So all of the streets that are showing up in red have many cracks, and the streets that are in green have fewer cracks. And so that's just an indication of how well that pavement is performing and how close it is to needing major maintenance or rehabilitation. So you can see just in the snapshot that there's a lot of red on our streets. You know, almost all of the core of the city is red. So I don't think that's any surprise to anybody, but it is the status of our roads.
All right, so the typical road is one of the biggest things is storm drainage, and when there's ever flooding or any amount of snow or run or anything like that, a lot of that corrodes a lot of the road, and then constant travel on the road doesn't help either. The next thing that Jeremy Keene talks a little bit more about is that so far the roads for the Missoula have a $6.48 million from the state gas tax that trickles down from the state fund, which also comes from a gas tax within the state. Jeremy talks about cost on average if we were to implement this gas tax as well.
About $11 a year. If you drive about 13,500 miles a year and get 25 miles to the gallon, that's what it would cost you. So we looked at, how does that compare if we had to raise that same amount of income through property taxes, through our road district? On a $300,000 home, we would have to increase those property taxes by $14.46 a year. So this is a way of, a gas tax is a user tax. It's a tax on direct use of the roads. The more you drive, the more you pay.
All right, and Jeremy Keene also talks about that there's about 400,000 tourists that just pass. There's 400,000 people who pass through the city of Missoula and use the gas station here in Missoula. So that's money that's coming from the outside coming in as well. So it doesn't have to follow along the property owners and stuff like that. It's people who pay for gas. So if you have a gas guzzler out there, you might be a little concerned about that as well. And of course, Jordan Hess is critical of current road funding, and he talks a little about how much everything has basically gone up since the early 90s.
We've been woefully underinvesting in our transportation network, and we have seen decade upon decade of declining federal investment or stagnant federal investment at best. Our federal gas tax hasn't changed since, I believe, 1993. Meanwhile, the cost of asphalt, the cost of oil, the cost of everything that goes into building a road has gone up dramatically since 1993. As our Public Works Director, Mr. Keene, just showed, the cost of maintaining our roadways goes up dramatically when we allow them to deteriorate to a point where they need to be rebuilt. And it would be bad public policy to allow that to happen. It would be very bad for the taxpayer. It would be very bad for our city to allow our infrastructure to deteriorate to that level.
All right, so that was Jordan Hess from the city council talking more about that. And local tax would be a local benefit across, along with the extra bonus of utilizing tourism that comes through the city of Missoula, like I said before. Many people who live in Missoula also have a great trail system in place for those who take advantage of the bike ped trails. So a lot of times, and the bus system's free. It's just that one of the biggest issues in the city of Missoula is the single occupancy car, and so there's not many people who actually carpool. And they did another survey in another committee meeting this week as well in the long-range transportation plan, where they said about 70% of people in Missoula ride in their car by themselves. And I'm just as bad. Jesse Ramos is not supportive of the gas tax because he thinks that the city of Missoula is nickel and diming the citizens.
I was very pleased to see Mr. Hess's passion about fixing the infrastructure and kind of doing that thing for the citizens. But I do want to kind of state briefly, as briefly as possible, Mr. Mayor, why I'm not going to be supporting it. And again, it just kind of comes from a different line of thinking, I think, with a lot of maybe the folks on the more libertarian conservative side of things, where we truly believe right now that the government does not have a revenue problem. We think that the government has a spending problem. And I'm going to highlight that with just a few basic examples. And the road district is one spot where I'm going to start, where we created this road district before any of us were on council, actually. And it started at $300,000. Last year, we levied it at about $4.5 million, so equating to a substantial increase over the last few years. We've taken about $21 million out of that road district since we created it. I tallied it up, and I think it's hard-pressed to find any citizens that would agree that our roads have gotten that much substantially better over it. In addition to that, with the $4.5 million subtracted from the $6 million, roughly $6.5 million spent on infrastructure, that leaves about $2 million left from the general fund that we're actually using to spend on repairing the road. So
all right, so Jesse Ramos thinks that we should use funding in the right way rather than throwing more money at the problem. Here's Earl Allen. He is from the county. He's from the Tura area in Missoula County, and he regularly commutes to the city of Missoula, and he talks about the impact to the people.
I believe that my daily commute and spending have added value to the businesses and properties here in town, and that my work has added more than just value to the tax base, but value to the overall community. So in that sense, being a member of the larger community here, I'm here, if for no other reason than to state my personal objection and doubts to this resolution and plan. As I expressed to the county commissioners last week, my great concern here is by putting this on the countywide ballot, in the rush it seems proponents are looking to get this done, especially with mail-in and absentee elections, the voters in the city will ride roughshod over the folks outside the city limits and pass a regressive tax, which will have a greater, harder effect on the folks out where I live. Folks who commute to town every day for work, folks like my friends' parents who are now retired and live on fixed incomes, folks who don't make a lot or have a lot.
All right, so that was Earl Allen. He talked a little bit more about it as well, and he's very skeptical of the annual cost overall, and he thinks that it's very hard on those who have fixed incomes, like he was saying, is that, for a lot of the people who live within the city, there's a larger population within the city of Missoula that would be voting on this gas tax, which is the majority compared to the people in the county. So he just wanted to throw his voice out there for the people in the county who primarily tend to be against a lot of tax increases on the county-wide level. Of course, this vote was not. This is going to be a vote which will be put on the June ballot. This is, of course, during the primary elections for all those seats that are happening within the state of Montana as well. So this is, either you support it or not. That the whole point of this is to put it on the ballot, and this is for the city to show support. Most of them did show support to this, except for John Contos, Amber Sherrill, and of course Jesse Ramos voted against this letter that they would send to the county for the support. Of course, like I said, good news. You can vote on it in June whether you like to increase the tax on gas for 2 cents per gallon. So. Okay, that's all I have to say about that meeting. It didn't end as strong as I wanted it to end, but moving on to public safety and health, because we're talking about the coronavirus, otherwise known as COVID-19. Of course, this was the topic for Wednesday's committee meetings of Public Safety and Health. Cindy Farr, Health Promotion Officer and Incident Commander, talks about Montana's risk for the coronavirus.
So right now there are no cases of COVID-19 in Montana, and there are no cases in Missoula, but we are preparing just in case. It's probably not a matter of if it comes here, but when. As everyone knows, we have seen a large spike in Washington State. Once they started testing, they started finding more cases. Our state health department now has the capability to test for COVID-19, but on a very limited capacity. And so nationwide, there's just not a lot of testing reagent available. So any testing that gets done has to come through the healthcare provider. Then they have to call our office. We consult with them, find out patient history, what their symptoms are, if they've had any travel, really get all of the details on that patient. And then we have to consult with our state health department, who helps determine if this person really would be a good candidate for testing. Because if we test people that have not had other things ruled out and haven't had any travel, then we are going to run out of reagent, and we are not going to be able to test the people that we need to be able to test.
All right, so that was Cindy Farr talking about that. Face masks should only be used to prevent the spread of the disease. So if you think that face masks are going to actually prevent you from getting it, forget about it. If you have it, if you do get a virus or anything like that, you should honestly be wearing a face mask in general. This isn't an airborne virus. This is a virus that is simply spread through the, I guess what's called the dewdrops. And they talked a little bit more about that, about, like when you touch your eye, you touch a doorknob, or touch your face. That's like one of the biggest things, that you should not touch your face, and you should regularly wash your hands. Especially wash your hands before you eat. That's the biggest thing. But here's Cindy Farr talking a little bit more about the people who are at the highest risk of succumbing to the coronavirus.
The vast majority of people who are getting sick with this virus are not having really bad outcomes. Typically, they just get a little cough and they feel a little crummy for a couple weeks, and then it goes away. The people that are at highest risk of bad outcomes with this disease are people that are over the age of 60 and those who have other underlying respiratory conditions.
All right, so many reports of people who have died from this happen to be people who are 16 over, and there are some people who are even younger and young kids who show absolutely no symptoms or no signs of the coronavirus whatsoever, but are still carriers. And the really weird thing about this particular respiratory disease is it's specifically, it has a long incubation period, which means that you don't actually get sick for a while, even if you have it, and then you do get sick, and then you kind of recover over the next couple of weeks, kind of like a walking pneumonia kind of type deal. Of course, Cindy talks about prevention, and this is what she had to say in terms of preventing the spread of this.
Precautions that we want people to take to protect themselves from this disease is exactly the same as the precautions for flu. Wash your hands frequently. Use hand sanitizer if soap and water are not available. Try to avoid touching your face. We know that the droplets in this virus can live on surfaces for several days, and so it is really important that if you have surfaces that are touched a lot, like doorknobs, be disinfecting those on a regular basis. Cover your cough with your cough into your elbow. All of the things that we say with the flu. Stay home if you are sick. Do not bring it to your workplace. Do not send your kids to school if they are sick. It's all the same precautions apply.
All right. So we'll talk a little bit more during this meeting as well. Of course, the health department is preparing for testing. If you're afraid or you think you might have this disease, you can call between the health hours, which is 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's 258 info. Again, that number is 258-INFO. Let me actually look up the actual number because all they threw up there was 258-INFO. But let me look at the actual number, which is 258 46 hold on a second. I'm sorry, I'm just like freezing here. Okay, 4636. 4636. 436. Let's actually type that in. 4636. Again, that number is 258-4636, and that's where you can find out information. And this is where you can call if you have concerns that you're getting sick and you're just like, oh man, I might have the coronavirus. So you can always check in with that as well. Okay, so one of the things is Erin Leahy, she's the health officer with the CD County Health Department, talks about outreach, and this is what she had to say about how they're going out there and educating people within the city of Missoula.
We meet with hospitals at least quarterly, face-to-face, so even if there's nothing going on, we're talking about where we're prepared and where we aren't. We have, what is the name of the group for those that have special needs?
Access and functional needs.
So, talking about what folks who may not have the wherewithal and would need assistance to cooperate with any instructions or recommendations that we issued. I think that what we do that has been underway since we knew about this virus is we then hold very frequent as needed, we call them HEAT, Health Emergency Advisory Team meetings, and we tend to do that by teleconference.
Hold on a second. And they talk about this more and more, and one of the things that are most of these issues are spreading comes from non-preventative measures. Like they constantly say, always wash your hands, always never touch your face. Of course, when someone tells you not to touch your face, you instinctively touch your face. It's kind of weird like that, that was actually intentional. Anyways, Erin Leahy talks more about common sense for those who get sick and the efforts you can make to prevent the spread altogether.
This is not a screening test. We'll screen you and see if you're sick or if your sniffles or your cough. It is simply not. It is a diagnostic tool. So many other things, as Cindy said, would have to be ruled out first. That said, when you present to a healthcare provider with any respiratory symptom, or if you've been traveling and you yourself highly suspect that it could be because of your travel that you have this respiratory symptom, call ahead. Give them that opportunity. What healthcare providers will do, besides screening you for your travel and your symptoms, is they are going to want to be prepared for when you walk in. We want healthcare providers to call us, but the general precaution in any healthcare setting, if you walk in with a respiratory symptom, you've seen the masks and the sanitizer, use those precautions. That's the kind of cooperation that we request of the public.
All right, so that was Erin Leahy, and that was my last comment from Public Safety and Health. There's a lot of things that could happen as well, and of course, the coronavirus COVID-19 doesn't have a vaccine, and H1N1, better known as the bird flu, spread for over a year and a half, and then so this is another one of those kind of big flus that are happening. So many pharmaceuticals are working on vaccines, but coronavirus has such a long incubation period, you don't even know exactly if you have it in the first place. But if you do have it and you have the symptoms, make sure you call ahead so they can prepare for it, because nothing's worse than somebody who is sick who just goes into a room full of other people who are suffering from one sickness or another just to get another virus from you from spreading it. It's very contagious. It's a very new virus, and that's the thing about new viruses is that it's so easy to get because there's not many immunities against it. Of course, some people start showing symptoms 14 days after exposure. 14 days is like the limited quarantine time, but some people are not even so sure 14 days is, the right amount of time, because you might, think about it like this. So you have somebody in quarantine was around people with the COVID virus, and then they get it maybe halfway through it, and so after the 7 additional days that they're there, then they start showing signs and start spreading it as well. So it's, of course, don't force people to go to work or school just because those are the largest spreaders of disease in Missoula. Wash your hands regularly. And of course, there's some jobs out there that you don't get paid sick leave, which is really terrible for a lot of people, especially in the service industry. It's a very awkward thing because a lot of them are living paycheck to paycheck, and people have to go to work regardless of whether or not they're sick. So you got to really think about that in terms of how much more are you willing to prevent the spread of the disease. So that's my end of the spiel and talking about public safety and health. And you can watch the whole meeting, and they talk a little bit more about this, but I kind of give you the cliff notes of the public safety and health about how Missoula is battening down the hatches for coronavirus. Public Works. One of the big things that are happening in the city of Missoula, so let's forget about diseases and all that horrible stuff. We're talking about dams. And Rattlesnake Dam is about to be removed this summer, back when the city acquired the water company gained by Carlisle Group. One of the properties was the Rattlesnake Dam. And Rattlesnake Dam, just a little history lesson, was used as the primary water source for people in Missoula until 1983 with the Giardia outbreak. And Giardia is tiny little microbes that are bred through fecal matter and cause diarrhea. So after that huge diarrhea outbreak that happened in 1983, the water company stopped using the Rattlesnake Dam, and basically it's been a set piece for those many years since. And now one of the biggest things is that they're kind of talking about making this into a public park, which is going to be a very cool, nice area as well. So here's Robert Roberts. He is with Trout Unlimited. He's one of the many partners and organizations that are coming together, and he's the project manager, and he's talking about the Rattlesnake Dam.
Just some real quick pictures. I know some of you have been there, some of you haven't, but the actual spillway in the top left, top right, there's a caretaker's cabin that was added in the early 2000s. Which will be dismantled and actually reused by a local contractor. And then bottom left shows Rattlesnake Creek above the dam with the reservoir to the right. And then bottom right is the reservoir at low pool when we drained it to do some of our topographic survey work for data collection.
Okay, so that was Rob Roberts once again talking a little bit more about that. The demolition plan is to remove the concrete and debris while the water at the time will be rerouted from July to September, and at the latest it might be in October. So one of the things that they want to do is they want to make sure that they remove the dam during the dry area, so they don't have to worry about any of the extra sediment to go down the river as they go on there as well. Of course, the stream is already flowing, but the dam is pure concrete, so they're going to get rid of that portion of it and kind of restore the Rattlesnake area to its former glory. Rob goes into their plan, and this is kind of like the timeline, exactly what they're going to do in terms of the Rattlesnake area.
So for a timeline, what you guys and other constituents can expect, starting in around April, we're going to do some of the minor outbuilding demolition, which includes the caretaker's cabin, some of the other small buildings on site that were formerly used, for the water system. That'll happen in April and May, and those small buildings should be out of there before our primary contractor, who's doing the demolition and restoration, shows up in late June. We will probably have our bypass channel and dewatering set by mid-July. And at that point, that project is basically moving full steam from mid-July through, somewhere around the beginning of October.
And of course, by the time October hits, they're going to be planning to have group volunteers. So if you're interested in actually restoring and helping out in your own way to help the city and help the Rattlesnake area become a park that people can go to, which is going to be the thing, you can look for volunteer opportunities happening in October, November timelines as well. So Morgan Valiant, Missoula Conservation Lands Manager, he talks a little bit more about this as well, and this is what he had to say.
I think the city should be really proud of this project. We've had the level of collaboration between city departments and outside entities is something I've not seen to this level in the 12 years I've been here. I think this is a really good proof of what we can do by having common goals, working together, pooling our resources. So I'm certainly really excited about it, and I think a lot in the community are.
And why shouldn't you be? It's going to be a whole brand new park within the city of Missoula. And hey, I've been there before. I was there when they fully announced they're going to need to take down the dam about 2 summers ago. It was a while ago when they decided to do this, but of course the whole planning phase had to go into this as they're moving forward about what are the steps they need to take. It's like, we need to remove the dam. Okay, but what are we going to do about the river? All right, so this is what we're going to do about the river. Now what are we going to do about, and then so on and so forth and everything like that. And then the plan afterwards once they remove the dam, they still have to remove so many other things and make things pretty much right. But of course, I even think that this place is going to rival Greeno Park once it's finished. And it's a nice area minus the dam, that is, and by spring 2021, we'll be able to reap the rewards from the dam removal. There were a lot of important items during Public Works. The main theme from this was items from the Montana Rail Link and Missoula working together for Missoula as a quiet zone. Of course, Missoula is backpacking on the Helena's plan for quiet zone to contact Montana Rail Link so they don't blow the train horn as they're going through cities. And of course, Missoula kind of really grew around the train tracks since its incarnation. One of the things that the city really wants to do is actually have a formal plan to have a quiet zone within the city of Missoula. So that's one of the things they were talking about. And of course, also, like I said before, in terms of carbon emissions, earlier in the show, is that the Missoula Long Range Planning meeting, they wanted to basically they have 71% of Missoulians driving their cars alone, and they want to put that down to about 35% by 2034, and it's a long-range plan to help encourage people to either use public transportation, carpool, and stuff like that. So that's what they're going to be working on through the Long-Range Planning Committee. Of course, committees went on pretty much all day Wednesday, and I have no videos for you guys, so I'm just going to kind of go through a lot of them, and you guys can check this out online, and I'll show you guys exactly where you can find this information and more. Admin and Finance went into the collective bargaining agreement with the city. Of course, many of the departments, snow removal, hazardous waste removal, hazardous vegetation, public works, all the people who get paid within the city of Missoula, so the collective bargaining. And this is a big deal because it covers the 2020 and 2023 contracts with city-run entities. And this is many of the departments within the city that the city funds. Let's see. Land use and planning. The city is footing a $100,000 for developing a Mullen to Broadway and reserve to the airport. This whole area, it's like how the Missoula has developed a downtown master plan, but this is a Mullen Street master plan, and they just call it the Mullen master plan because it kind of encompasses that area, England Boulevard, behind all those storefronts. And they're talking about this because they got a build grant, that $13 million build grant to basically help build Mary Jane Boulevard. But of course, the city is putting in $100,000. I think it's $50,000 from the general fund, and then other amounts of money that they've raised to help match that money as well. This would be, of course, better information gathering to improve and connect long-range transportation plans. They're talking about bus rides, bike trails. The city approved this and put it on the consent agenda. And of course, this is going to be a public hearing, which will be next Monday, March 9th. And so if you live in the Mullen area, in which I was talking about, Mullen to Broadway, Airport Boulevard, Reserve Street, that kind of general new neighborhood that's popping in, and you want to have your voice heard about how Mullen neighborhood is going to grow in that particular area, you can go to the public hearing meeting on Monday, March 9th. Of course, that concludes my city council report. If you want more information, you can go to the ci.missoula.mt.us. This is a wonderful website and a tool for many people to get involved within the city of Missoula and to find out what's going on. All right, so without further ado, I have an art clip which will help us kick off the art talk, which is First Friday, which is today. So without further ado, here is an art installation which is ending next week, and there's a whole bunch of new art that's popping in starting today. Art is a big staple of First Friday of Missoula in the downtown area, and every first Friday of the month I like to talk about some of the art installations that are popping in, and they usually last for the month of March or the month of the Friday that it happens. So we're kicking things off, and we're kicking things off with the Raku Rendezvous, which is happening at the Artist Shop. Raku fired ceramic collaborations by Steve Ruby and Charlie Thorntonson with guest works by Lowell and elementary students will be featured at the Artist Shop, and it is a wonderful ceramic set that's happening there as well. This universe is you, and you can go on down to the Radius Gallery. They have their new location off of Higgins Avenue, right where the Uptown Diner used to be. Radius Gallery is honored to exhibit the exquisite work of 4 distinguished design-minded artists: Don Candy, Chris Maynard, Duan Slick, and Kario Takamura, sorry about that. The title of the exhibit comes from the poem Remember by U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo. All right, so they have a bunch of different arts, different styles: cut feathers, ceramics, acrylics, and mixed media. At Noteworthy Paper and Press, they have The Offering. Please join this March for the upcoming First Friday Showcase. Shelby Ashton of The Offering will be here to share their jewelry. Shelby's mission is to craft and to create high-quality, sustainable sourced pieces of adornment. They consider this craft a functional art that they hope will showcase creative design. And this is going to be at the Noteworthy Paper and Press. Up next, we got the Berkshire Hathaway Montana Properties is hosting, photography show called Stillness. And this is Marcel Hosier. That person's passion is to make beautiful creative landscape and wildlife images. They strive for simplicity in the photographs, including blurred or even colored backgrounds that make the main topic stand out. Up next, we have the Dram Shop, which is photography by Kayla McCormick. Dream State explores the bad side of photography. The use of limited focus and blur creates an image that eclectic motions and recalls memories. I'm sorry if I'm butchering a lot of these words for art. Letting the viewer assign their own meaning to whatever they see based on their own experiences. And this will be at the Dram Shop. Up next, we got the Missoula Art Museum, and of course, it wouldn't be First Friday without going down to the Missoula Art Museum for their showcase. Experience MAM's engaging exhibits free during most of their hours, and of course, First Friday they'll be open from 7 to 8 p.m. They have some live music from KBGA. Approximately, this is Stephen Braun, Montana Legacy, 2018 ceramics, approximately 48 by 72 inches. MAM collection purchased in part of the support of the Virginia Moffett, Dan Weinberg, and Roger Barber. Copyright Stephen Braun. So you can enjoy some of the art that's happening there. A lot of mixed stuff, a lot of installations that are happening on there as well. Most First Fridays are a great excuse for a lot of art museums and art shops to bring in some new art happening downtown Missoula. Up next, we got at the Downtown Dance Collective, and this is featuring art from the Missoula International School students, and they present a moran of artistic expression from students aged 3 to 15 years of age. Students have created works using watercolor, chalk, fabric, and string, while some incorporated glue, salt, and light and heat. I would only go if they had macaroni. Sorry, their inspiration comes from the observing plants, investigating artists, exploring medium, and experimentation with a variety of materials. Their students pride in themselves on being communicators in an ever-growing world, and part of the Missoula International School mission is to make creative connections with the global perspective, which is displayed in this artwork. And you can check that out, the Downtown Dance Collective. It's right across from the Parking Commission, the downtown parking garage, but also right next to the La Flèche building. Next, we got Kelsey Walsh, and this is opening reception at the Frame of Mind inside the 709 gallery, which is 709 Ronan Street. The Frame of Mind, is that the one on Brook Street? Okay, so the store is called Frame of Mind. Look it up. The first show of the 2020 featuring local artists Montanan Kelsey Walsh. They display a variety of her fly fishing, wildflowers, and everything Montana watercolor and prints. Kelsey is also a grade school teacher. Her artwork is inspired by the natural beauty of mountains, lakes, and rivers in Montana. Bewilderment, which is described a feeling of being on top of the mountain and looking around at all of the mountains, lakes, and rivers below. And finally, I wanted to show this last because it is the wrap-up of the International Cups. So if you guys get a chance at the reception tonight, they're going to be showing the last of the International Cups before they sell all these cups. And the Clay Studio of Missoula is an exhibition showing ceramic works that explores the infinite possibilities of the idea of the cup. And this is really cool because they have wheels on this particular mug where you can, and most of these are made where you can drink out of them, and they're cool designs, and they're an exploration of metaphor and abstract context. Of course, work by 33 artists have been selected from entries from around the world, and the participating artists come from the United States, Canada, Scotland, and the Netherlands. This year's exhibit was juried by the Sunshine Cobb, a nationally recognized potter living in Helena, Montana. Of course, at the closing reception, they'll be announcing exhibition award winners, and it will be the final opportunity for the public to purchase some of the remaining unsold works from this exhibit. So this will be your last chance to see this year's International Cups. They have it on display for the whole month, and then they wrap it up, and today is going to be the day where they wrap it up. So without further ado, and as I wrap up, I'm going to show you guys International Cups made by our very own Rick Phillips here at Missoula Community Access Television. Well, if you guys are interested in going out and about within the city of Missoula, you can check out more by going on to MissoulaEvents.net. But it's time for my What's Going On in Missoula? Hey, let's talk about some indoor fun. If you guys are planning on staying indoors this weekend as well, the best places to go in Missoula is Roots Acro Sports Center, Mismo Gymnastics, Flying Squirrel, maybe the Hub, but that's not really engaging in activities. But then the Missoula Sports Arena and the Valentine Center. There's a lot of great indoor fun stuff as we slowly transition out into the outdoor springtime stuff. And today is the perfect time to be out and about anyways, so just check it out. Friday, it's going to be beautiful, 60-degree temperatures. If you guys are going to the public library today, Tiny Tales and Story Time starts at 10:30 a.m. as they always do, and it's a good way to engage with kids in reading just before they start school. Hands-on science and chemical reactions. Spectrum Discovery Center is explore your own and create your own chemical reaction with the use of the Discovery Bench today at the Spectrum Discovery Center on Toole Avenue. It's $3.50 for anyone 4 and over, and if you're under 3, you get in free. Learn a new technique. Where? The ZAC, of course. The Zootown Arts Community Center is doing a new tradition. Every month on First Friday, the in-house ceramicist extraordinaire Dana Childs will be demonstrating a special pottery painting technique in the pottery studio. This activity is great for all ages, and in our pottery studio is stocked full of a wide variety of options. Cribbage, Missoula Senior Center, starting at 12:30. Bridge, it's 12:45 at Missoula Senior Center. Base Art Group at Base. This is all abilities for people who live in assisted living or people in wheelchairs, Americans with disabilities. Base Art Group is a wonderful organization, and they've been coming through the city of Missoula, and they're trying to make a video for their improv class and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Teen Writers Group, Missoula Public Library, in the afternoon, starting at 3:30 p.m. It's a great way for the kids of the teenage range, and if you're a teen writer and who needs a little inspiration or feedback, come to the Teen Writers Group and get your inner artist flourish. They meet in various places, but the young adult librarian on duty will know where to send you. Word to the women. Word is a women to the woman is a signature fundraising event for women's opportunity and resource development, a local nonprofit that has been helping Missoula women and families since 1986. Join for all women-fronted bands, food trucks, merchandise, and beverages for purchase. Help support our mission of strengthening our community by creating opportunities that support and inspire women. And this is going to be at Free Cycles starting at 7 p.m. A Doll's House, Part 2 by Lucas Hanath. Zootown Arts Community Center is doing a show. It's $20 a ticket, and it's $10 for students, and it's door only. You can't RSVP. No RSVP, I mean. There's the Broadway play, A Doll's House Part 2, comes to the ZAC, starring Missoula's favorite, Selena Chatlane, Haley Court, Rick Martino, and Teresa Wardorf. And the play picks up after the class Hendrik Ibsen's A Doll's House concludes. Nora walks through the back door 15 years later and once again lives and our ideas of how we live in them will be turned upside down in this smart and sparkly comedy directed by Roger Hedden. A Doll's House Part 2 is presented by a special arrangement by the Dramatists Place Service Incorporated, based out of New York. Spitfire Grill, MCD Center for Performing Arts, is doing a more PG-13 kind of musical show happening at MCT. They put on a show at the Missoula Community Theater. The Spitfire Grill is a heartwarming musical featuring Percy, a young woman fresh out of prison who dreams of a new start in a small town of Wisconsin. And you can check that out. It's happening this weekend, and they have matinees around 2 p.m. on the weekends, but of course most nights it's at 7:30 p.m. with the additive Sunday early evening performances at 6:30. Spring Awakening at University of Montana. This is a great time to enjoy the spring. Of course, Montana's spring doesn't really start until summer, a week before summer, basically. Lush melodies, lyrics, and tribulations of coming of age intertwined in this Tony Award-winning musical. Spring Awakens is based on the famously provocative 1891 German drama. The plot follows a group of small-town teenagers as they struggle with the urges, hormones that thrust upon them in the midst of a repressive society. Rock and roll, fun times. Spring Awakening is a landmark production that harnesses all the passion and tragedy of adolescence using the powerful alt-rock aesthetic. Saturday, Winter Market, as always, from 9 to 1 p.m. At the Orchard Homes, which is just off of 3rd Street up near Reserve. They do it every Saturday to cure your woes for the farmers market, which will be starting in, I believe it's the week before Memorial Day weekend, but don't quote me on that. And then, of course, Writer's Room is doing a workshop. Missoula Writing Collaborative is working on a writer workshop, so if you want to improve your writing, that kind of stuff, it's going to be hosted at Good Work Ventures at 129 West Alder Street of Missoula. If you're a writer and you want to work on writing or you want to start writing, it's the best opportunity to do it starting at 10 a.m. Of course, I'm going to have to wrap up my show a little earlier now. I'm running out of time, but I did want to thank you for joining me. And if you stuck with me this long, you guys can find out more information by going to MissoulaEvents.net. If you're interested in finding out what's going on in the city of Missoula, go to MissoulaEvents.net. All right. So without further ado, I want to thank you guys for joining me. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramp. Take care.